Welcome to the iNetrepreneur Radio Show. We are so honored to bring you your host, the ultimate celebritypreneur, connecting businesses and celebrities worldwide. Winner of the Networking Organization of the Year, best-selling author, magazine publisher, trainer, and owner and founder of Network Together and the iNetrepreneur Media Network from magazines, TV, and radio network, we're excited to bring you your host, Mr. Robert W. Jones.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a wonderful Thursday here in the sunny state of Arizona. Although lately it has not been as sunny as we're normally accustomed to. We're actually on a record pace this year to get as much rain as any season that we have our monsoons in. So, I think 1984 was the last time we've had this much rain locally, and it has been a paradise. It's so green. But along with that, there's been a little bit of humidity. So I don't know if it's affected my hair or not, but I hope I'm coming across nice and lovely for everyone. I'm Robert Jones. I'm the founder and the chairperson of the iNetrepreneur Network, and this is the iNetrepreneur Network radio show. And what I do is I bring on guests and members of the entrepreneurial community so we can get to know them a little bit better. I always say we want to get to know a person's who and why. And if we really know their who and why and we resonate with that, we'll always get to their what and their how. And it's like, they talk about know, like, and trust. And it's like, for me, really, it's like know, love, and trust. It's like when we talk about Tony Robbins, we don't go like, oh, I like Tony Robbins. It's like, no, I love Tony Robbins. And that's what we should as entrepreneurs do, is always get out there. And our first goal is, can I give so much that people want to love me? They want to be with me. They want to work with me, and I them, and that's what it really is all about. We're entering a whole new phase of where business is going. And, it's not about being apart from the community and extracting as much wealth out of it as possible. It's really about being a part of the community where you give back and you're a part of, just like this book, The Art of Connection. And I do want to toot my horn about that book. In that book, we created with our contributing authors over 120 authors who became, yes, they were first-time authors, they became best-selling authors, and you know what? They gained a little bit of courage to go out and to do greater things. And I've always said the best thing that you can do is to do things you've never done, say things that you've never said, and see things that you've never seen. And with that said, I just want to go into a little bit of housekeeping. Don't forget, you can subscribe to our channel here. It's youtube.com/iNetrepreneur Radio. Again, that's youtube.com/iNetrepreneur Radio. You can go there to look at all the back shows and some of the personalities we've had on there. And we've had some real personalities. Also, don't forget, we're on Facebook. Please like us. Please ask questions even through our comments. If I get a chance, I'll ask our guest, comments. We streamed out into all these different places. I don't even know we're streaming out anymore. It's just like there's tech people that do stuff like that, and I'm just happy to be in front of the camera. I'll tell you that. Also, go to ntevents.net. Many people don't know that our organization puts on over 1,200 meetings and events for entrepreneurs, business owners, and influencers each and every year. It's a lot to keep up with, and I do want to say, I'm missing my lovely wife right now. She is taking care of her mom in Las Vegas, and it is a full-time job right now. So I'm doing my best to do what I can in my position. But, please, if you know Sean Jones, my beautiful, wonderful wife, just send her, thoughts and prayers, an email, a card, or whatever. It's really hard being a caretaker, with what's going on with her mom. So, with that said, I'm glad you're here today, and I'm really excited to bring my guest on today. We're going to get to really deep dive with her an hour of time, and I am here with Suzan Marie Chin-Taylor. Oh my gosh, that's something to say, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
I look at your name and I thought, my gosh, if we did a character count, you're going to be right up there, aren't you?
It's funny that you would say about introduction, because I just have to segue. Years ago in another life with a prior company, I had that I sold. It was Fat Cat Media Services, and it was a multimedia division of Thomson Data Systems Limited. And my elevator speech used to start out at this networking meeting of, hello, my name is Suzan Marie Chin, and I am the CEO and president of Fat Cat Media Services, the multimedia division of Thomson Data Systems Limited. And that's a long name for a small company that's
Yes.
big on creative service. And I'll tell you, you get an elevator speech like that going every week, every event, you do the same thing. Next thing I knew, about maybe about a dozen or so meetings later, when I'd get up to introduce myself, people were there in the audience going right along with me.
And those
Personal
things
brand.
matter. Yeah, those things matter. And it reminds me, I always say, it's great to be informational, but I'd rather be memorable, right?
There you
I always,
go.
I always say, if you walk into a room full of animals, apples, be the banana. Because when you walk away, no one's going to remember the other apples, but they certainly will remember that banana. And so I think that you have a lot of that. And a lot of things I used to do was I used to sing too. I used to sing my jingle, when I came into every meeting. And that's what it's always been about for me, Susan. It's always been, how can I make things meaningful, but also have fun in everything that I do? Because I always felt
Mhm.
like if I was learning and I was having fun doing it, I wouldn't even notice I was learning anymore. I would just be absorbing it. Don't you kind of agree?
Oh, definitely. Same with work. If you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. It
Absolutely not.
you want to do something where you're waking up every morning and you can't wait to get started
Yeah.
because, ooh, what fun stuff am I going to delve into today?
Well, it's like they say, it's like, be in the position where, you love every Monday. I mean, really, you look forward to Monday because when you love what you do, you want to keep sharing, you want to keep serving, and
Mhm.
yes, and you want to keep selling because you stand behind the value of what you offer to someone else. Because at the end of the day, I mean, we're not even really exchanging transactions. It's really about exchanging energy, isn't it?
Yeah, exchanging energy and ideas. And I have found, because I've been told by colleagues that no one can network and work a room like I can. They say it's almost kind of scary to watch. I've really missed that, being able to do that in a face-to-face situation. And now we're having to go about it in a different way online, and building that comfort, building that trust, and having to learn to be patient, that it's going to take several online meetings to establish that rapport that you used to be able to do over a cup of coffee in an hour
Yeah.
on a first
Yeah.
time meeting. It's just dynamically everything has shifted.
You
So
know,
it's,
and
yeah, it is having to learn how to be more patient with the process and the way that we have to engage with one another now.
it and I tell people this when I walk into, one of my meetings, because we do have some in-person meetings and then we also have virtual meetings. And I always say this. I always say, we just went through this new normal. And I said, here recently, we're coming into the new normal. And the new normal really is balancing the speed of virtual connections and the speed of in-person connections. And you
Mm.
know and it really matters to me, and that's why with the Art of Connection Summit coming up, we look at it from the heart set, the mindset, the in-person connections, the traditional media connections, and the digital connections, because at every level there's a different style of conversation, and that's the tone, it's the speed, it's the engagement, it's the
Mhm.
there's so many factors that go into each and every one. And a person, even if they speak in one language, they almost have to create and learn a dialect for each and every media funnel that they're, transmitting through, aren't they?
Absolutely. The way that I will engage with someone, I do not a lot of keynote speaking and workshops, and just the shift in how you have to interact with your audience and even present material in an online platform. It can be the same material, but the way that you have to go about doing it in an online versus a live event, it's very, very different. In the online event, you were talking about we're exchanging energy. When you're in an online event, you don't feel that human energy like you do when you're in a live audience setting, that you can almost, maybe that's the wrong word, but you almost feed off of it. You can take the tone of the room and it will guide how everything is going to go in your presentation. And that's a lot more challenging in online. You have to look for those very subtle cues of, the way somebody's looking at the screen, or are they looking down a lot? Are they conversing with someone off screen? It's having to read those body signals on camera,
Yes.
that you don't have to worry about that so much in an audience, because you're actually able to make that eye contact throughout a whole room, rather
And
than seeing this little strip of people on the side and hope, who am I really engaged with?
yes, and the other thing about virtual is really the engagement and the consistency, and then the follow up is so much more key. What
Mhm.
I remember and I love about live, it's like, what do I remember? Oh my gosh, that sounds like, oh yeah, for 40 years ago, but um, but what I know about live events, I mean, I call it the Moses moment. And I don't know if you've ever heard it termed like that,
Yes.
the Moses moment. And and that's when, you're on the stage and you feel it, you're connecting with the audience, and you feel the energy. They're feeding off you, you're feeding off them. And then your time comes to that end and you're like walking off the stage, and it's like people flood to you. They want to get to know you, they want to touch you, they want to shake your hand, they want to high
Yep.
five, they want to go to your table. and 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 then in the virtual event, it's like when you go off stage, you're gone. It's like I don't get a chance to reach out and kiss babies, so to speak. And doing so many live events that I have, one of the things I found is you know don't let that moment go. Bring them back and let them talk
Mm.
intimately in the room again and again and again. And it's still not live, Susan, but it gives them so much energy. But you're right. I mean, there is nothing better than being in front of an audience. And you know what? It's like the audience gives you the guideposts of conversation. And
Mhm.
when you love and know what you do, you know what? You come in with what you're going to talk about, and you know what happens is you talk about what the audience is giving you, and that's what's so amazingly different about that live audience, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And I think one of the most rewarding things in a live, and every once in a while you get it in the virtual, is you're discussing something and maybe it's a complex topic or something new to someone, and you see the expression on their face change. And it's almost like the Looney Tunes cartoon, where you
Yeah,
literally see that light bulb appear above their head, and they got it. And they're you that re you know, like, that revelation, and you know that they're gonna take that little nugget and they're gonna run home and they're gonna start implementing it into their business or
yeah.
into their life. And that's where you get that juice, that gratification, like, you almost feel like, "Yes, yes, I've done
It-
my job." Even if
it-
just one person gets something that can help them, you have done your job.
and I I am so with you on that. And
Yeah.
and there's almost, it, and I'm going to say this because I am a believer of higher powers. And
Mm,
you can feel it even if it's really right. It's like the third eye. you
yes.
you can feel that connection from across the room or up close. And that's what I like. And learning how to do that in the digital world, I to me, it's almost like being in, Star Trek, and it's the whole new, galaxies that we're following. So I
Right.
think there's so much room for us to learn how, you know, to create the connection. And like one of my spiritual masters used to say, sometimes you have to look at it as the same difference. So, it is a connection, but it's different. But at the end, once you learn the practice of it, you'll get the same result. And I used to love being trained by him. But I want to go back, because you
Oh,
and
yeah.
I could talk about that
Yeah, we
virtually
could.
live forever. Oh my gosh! But I want to talk about is, you know I love on this show because I want to know a little bit about, who you are, where were you
Okay.
born, your parents, what was childhood like, your interest, what did you look like? Did you look up at the stars, or did you look at the ground, or did you read the books, or are you just one of those childs that just went out there and were lost for days? Tell us a little bit about those early years.
Okay. Well, born in Philadelphia. I was adopted through Catholic Charities as an infant. And so, nationality wise, I am half Philippine and the other half is Italian Irish, Northern Italian Irish. I was adopted by Syrian and Lebanese Orthodox Christian couple. My father was a PhD of chemistry at a local university in Philadelphia. Mom was a homemaker. And I would have to say that I lived a very, we weren't wealthy, but we were well off. And well off in the sense that what resources my father made, he saved a lot, but he made sure that I was exposed to a lot of cultural things as I was growing up. My mother was a very inventive cook. And so we would try all kinds of things, all kinds of food. So we weren't like the meat and taters. And it was one of those things where when mom put something experimental on the table, if you didn't want to starve that night, you ate it, whether it looked funny or not, or like you kind of sniffed it and went, no, no, no. But it, we, I was just exposed to a lot of things. I was a bit of a curious George. I got my mom into trouble sometimes, wandering off in department stores and getting lost and getting into things that I shouldn't have gotten into. Definitely a dad's girl. My favorite memories of childhood were being able to spend time with my father at the college, in the campus, in his office, or in the laboratory. And when I was growing up, all of my babysitters were my father's international students. So at a very young age, I was exposed to a lot of these beautiful Indian women and men that would come in their gorgeous saris and their salwar kameez with their bangle bracelets. And that kind of leads into where I wound up later on in life. And it was a fun and interesting childhood. Dad made it really, really interesting. I studied piano, I studied voice. By the time I got through high school, I played 4 instruments.
Oh,
Was originally going to go to college to study opera, and then decided I didn't want to make life that my art, because you have to be willing to sacrifice a personal life for your art if you want to get to that upper echelon. Figured, "Mm, I'll do something different." So I went into business because they thought, okay, go into business. It's a good career. You'll be able to provide for yourself.
and business might have even been an unusual choice at that time.
For a girl, it was.
Yeah.
It definitely was. However, my family was very progressive in that on my mother's side of the family, she had a brother that had 4 daughters, and they all went into engineering, which was very unusual at that time. Other brothers in the family, their kids all went into the science ran very, very deep in the family. And so I think that my aunts were chemists. And so there wasn't that stigma of women either become secretaries or nurses or teachers, that there was a lot of influence in the family of women that went into careers that weren't, those typical careers for women at that time. And so they were a great influence, that they said, whatever interests you, don't be afraid to explore it and go for it.
And that's for many people that watch this, that's why this early beginning matters so much, because it it's like a weaving of a tapestry of our lives. Sometimes it gives you a foundation of being open, of being alive, of, like you said, being curious, of embracing. One of the things that my mom always taught me, she's like, embrace your diversity,
Hmm.
embrace people's diversity. I mean, I'm half Mexican and I'm half Welsh. My mom was Catholic, my dad was Methodist. They sent me to synagogue because neither one of them, they felt like at least I'd get the foundation right. So I went to Temple Bethel in Omaha, Nebraska, during all my childhood. So it was like kind of crazy, but you know, because of all this kind of, let's say, differences, it told me, and it made me look at how can I unify all of this. And my mom
Hmm.
always said, embrace the diversity, but work towards unity. And I just loved those words from her. Because we learn from each other, but we can also work with each other. You know, you know, we're hitting up on the end of this segment. Did you have any? It sounds like you had a whole tribe of people around you that influenced you, but were
Oh
there
yeah.
any like a hero that you had when you were early, in your early years, like one person that really just stands out?
Definitely my dad.
Okay.
My dad was my dad was larger than life. He was one of the best lecturers, and I think the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, even though I'm not blood related to him. But that I wanted to do what he did in some way, and he just loved
Mm.
what he did. It showed in everything, and he was a pay it forward type of guy. He was the one that always said to me, "You are enough exactly as you are, and never forget that you're perfect just as you are, and to be true to yourself." And just my dad thought I was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So of
Oh,
course,
well,
how could you not love someone that thinks you're that way? You know.
but it also shows, and you also carry it in the right way, and I appreciate that about you. So when we come back to the break, we're going to come a little bit closer and talk about a little bit of the skill sets and tools that you use in your life to help other entrepreneurs. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Thank you.
Network together. It's all about connections. Expand your sphere of influence. Build relationships. Be part of something bigger. Be part of Network Together.
All right, everyone. I am with Suzan Chin-Taylor, although it's Suzan Marie Chin-Taylor if she actually put the whole name up there. We've talked about, being online versus being, in person. I mean, I had no idea that you were from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I mean, if I was just to look at the LinkedIn profile, I thought, well, you're probably from Newport Beach, California, and you ended up in Cottonwood, Arizona. And, that again, that's why I love getting to know a little bit about your who. But you know, you know, we shared some stories a little bit about what your childhood was like and really what created an impact on on,
Hmm.
on really your awareness. And I think that that's what you have more than most people, is you had a foundation of really embracing being aware of the things that are going around you. And I mean, from what people were saying to how they're feeling to maybe even to the spiritual part of people, I just feel like you really have a great intuition, you know, naturally. But I also think it was a byproduct of, the nurturing that you had in your life. So let's go a few layers later, because I know that you've been in different types of the professionals environment. You picked up, different skill sets, and you learn the DISC system. And I know a lot of people, they hear about the DISC system, but they don't really understand what that is. Can you
Hmm.
speak a little bit about, what that is to someone who's heard it, but they don't really understand what that is?
Well, it's a way of learning about yourself. And the basic principle behind it is we, each of us falls or has a dominance in one of four styles: D, I, S, or C. D meaning dominant, I, influencer, S, steadiness, or C, conscientious. And we'll have some tails and into other areas, but we all have one thing that it strikes that is your more driving force. And in each of these quadrants on the circle of disc, it each of those types of personalities, there's not one bad or good, they're just all different, is that we each have different stressors and we each have different motivators. And also the way that we like to communicate and how we like to receive information and learn and how we interact with people. And the beauty of DISC is that once you understand yourself and how you tick, then you're better able to understand others when you know what their style is. For instance, I'm an I. When I first started learning about this, and I learned what I was and took the profile, and then my husband took a profile because we got a free one in the part of the training, and I looked at his report and I looked at mine, and I went, yeah, that explains a whole heck of a lot because there's those dynamics. Like, why does he react that way when I do this and vice versa? Is because we're coming from two different styles. And in a
Right.
workplace, and especially in small businesses where you've got family dynamics involved, is that understanding it allows you to communicate easier some of those things that might be tough subjects to bring up. And it can really change a workplace culture to create cohesive teams that instead of rubbing each other wrong, actually begin to understand each other and find ways to work with each other in a way instead of it being adversarial, become best friends.
Right.
And I've seen those shifts of people just not having the awareness of how when they do something a certain way or say something a certain way, how it makes another person feel. And they may not even be aware, like, oh, well, when I do that, that really hurts her feelings. And that's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah.
And opening up those communication channels in a very non-threatening way of just self-awareness, self-understanding really can work wonders in a company. And then it's even
Well,
stuff that you can take out into your daily life because you can start as you learn more about DISC, you can do quick people reads on people around you and go, yeah, I think that maybe, yes. Can also help
and
you in sales too,
uh,
reading a potential customer and how they
I
want to
mean,
interact with you.
absolutely, because I'm writing down some words here, and we're kind of putting some patterns in my head of what you're talking about. And sometimes people look at like companies or corporations as these non-entities, but really they're entities of living in human
Yeah.
beings, that all go to work, that they report to someone, they're a part of a culture, they're part of a dynamic, they have certain milestones that they need to reach. I mean, there's certain directives that they're given, and even some people, if it's a really large hierarchy, report to people above, and they're also responsible to people that are below. And it all goes back to the same thing. It's everything is a system of communication, and you know inside and outside and to and from each other. And you brought up a couple of other things that I think that need to be bared out about this. You said good or bad, and so much of the time, isn't it, Susan, that we as entrepreneurs look at ourselves as either we did something bad or we did something good. And really, what I'm hearing you're saying, it's not really necessarily always about good and bad. It's really about understanding and going forward, isn't it?
Right. Is that all of the profiles, uh, whatever you fall into, it's what your qualities are. When you were
Yeah.
saying about good or bad, it's like just because someone is a D or someone is an I does not make them a better choice for a particular position. It just means what they're going to be able to bring to that position versus someone that is in another person has another type of personality. So it helps an organization when they understand that as a team of how to use and tap into people's strengths and channel people in certain ways so that they can be more productive, more creative, and more valuable to the organization as a whole. And when they feel they're being valued and they're able to use the things that make them feel good, they're going to just shine naturally.
Yeah, and
And
the
you're
other
going
thing
to
I
have less turnover. You're going to have a lot less turnover in an organization.
well
And you're going to be attractive and recruit the talent that you want to recruit and keep that talent.
Yes, and it goes back to the other things that happen in business, and I mean, I'm really in this right now because so much of the time as business owners too, we're taught that you're either a success or you're a failure, and if you start understanding the patterns of communication, the patterns of conversation, the patterns of different people's personalities, it really isn't like I failed in our communication. It's that I need to, let me learn to be better in my communication for when I speak and when I listen, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. It also it helps you with skills where it's not saying to you, all right, you need to change your personality. No. But when you're interacting with someone that needs to communicate a different way, still be yourself, but understand what are the best ways for you to communicate with them. And then when they understand what are the best ways to communicate with you, you just naturally are able to collaborate much more effectively.
Right. And some of your superpowers that you help with business owners is, you know, and I think this all goes about it's just understanding people and audiences and how products and services and ideas fit in. I mean, I really do see you as kind of an architect like that. And because you talk about, how do I help entrepreneurs build brand awareness? Well, you know what? It all goes back to a certain amount of communication. How do I help businesses build alliances? Well, it all comes, to a certain amount of alignment and the ability to have sustainability, you know, but but a part of that is when you work with people, you also talk about how do individuals and teams and companies, how do you help them form these strategic alliances that create a profound amount of success? Because they say 1 plus 1, if done synergistically, is like 11. But if you're taking hundreds plus hundreds, I mean, it's like you're getting on to infinite, aren't you?
Yes. Okay. I can sum it up in one phrase: pay it forward. I'll just digress and just tell a little story that when I had my own business back in California, my prior business, it was a marketing business. I got into a very serious automobile accident and I was out of commission for several months.
Mhm.
But prior to that, I'd been very active in a networking group. And I just used to give, because these were small companies, a lot of startups, entrepreneurs, and I would just spend time asking lots of questions, getting to know people. I think that's the key is before
Yeah.
you even start to try to sell someone, listen first and ask yourself, am I really listening or am I just waiting to talk? And if you really listen and ask lots of questions, give of yourself, be willing to give of yourself. Give somebody a tidbit or a recommendation or something, share something that worked with you for you to help you get to where you are. And I'll tell you, you may never get business from that person, but I truly believe in the karmic wheel and what goes out there into the universe. And the reason I'm sharing this is that an important person in my life is my late husband at the time, not my husband now, but my late husband at the time said, "Why do you give so much away? You should be charging for that knowledge. You're a consultant. That's how you make down." Didn't see the value of this, of why I was doing that. And I said, because I want to.
Mhm.
I have something and I feel like somebody's helped me along the line. Now I'm honor bound to share that. Well, after I had that accident and I couldn't get out and network and I couldn't get out and sell, all the people within that networking group heard that I was in trouble, that I was hurt. I had people from that networking group calling me and saying, "I know you can't drive. Do you need me to take you to physical therapy?" Do you need me to bring you some groceries? Because I know your husband's working out of the area. Do you need anything? Do you need me to help you with laundry? And then when they knew I was starting to feel a little bit better, they started to send me referral business and say, she can't get out and sell, but you can go to see her at her house. And I got more business when I was laid up from the networking from people that had never given me business than I could have ever imagined. And so when you're willing to pay it forward and give of yourself, a gift that only you can bring to the table and to the universe, when you need it the most, it will come back to you in spades. And it's happened to me in my professional career over and over and over again, Robert. The company I have right now, I built my business 100% on word of mouth marketing. And I've grown at a rate of a minimum of 10% every year since 2004. I do no advertising other than what I'm doing on LinkedIn, my website, and personal appearances and doing speaking engagements. So it is, the power of networking is amazing, but you're only going to get out of it as much as you're willing to give it.
Yeah,
I think that, and that is even more so true when we're talking about online marketing. And going
yes,
back to that, the first rule is, how may I be of service?
yes,
Not, what am I going to get out of this conversation or this meeting? No, what is this person going to get out of spending that half hour with me?
yes. Because I truly believe that, you know, one of the things that I learned in one of my masterminds, and we were asked a question, and one of the gentlemen gave his answer, and we asked him, why are you the billionaire? And this might be in dollar terms, but it was really, really interesting. And he told us, he says, because I know myself best. I know what I do better than anyone else in the world. And I know that in every other place, I find people who do all those things better than me. And, for most of us, we struggle to do everything instead of just doing the gifts, the true gifts that we're given. And that was the most amazing thing. And, when you and I talk, see, and I tell this, I try to tell entrepreneurs this myself. If I have salt and you have sugar, and we barter, and I give you salt and you give me sugar, we both
Yes.
benefit. And true entrepreneurs, they hear the person and they will know where they will fit. And if it's needed, they will say, here is so much that I'm giving to you to do something for me, as opposed to not listening, giving a deaf ear, and walking on and saying, I just am going to carry the salt for the rest of my life instead of having now salt and sugar. And I think that that's some of the things that entrepreneurs don't understand. And the other thing is one of the things I've seen in entrepreneurs, and I know I'm getting on my little box here, but one of the things is, I'll see entrepreneurs spend $35,000 on their car, but they won't spend $3,000 on their business. And I think to myself, if they spent $35,000 on their business, they would probably have a $300,000 car. And it's just, sometimes, we have to speak in such ways, like you said, that light bulb moment comes up, because, value, money is just a part of the
Right.
value of energy that goes from an entrepreneur to another entrepreneur. And see, that's what, and I'm going to say love in the Greek form
Yes.
of agape. That's what I love about you, because you give your love and that energy to everyone that you do business with. And I still remember the first time I talked, I said, you're stuck with me for life, Susan. You are stuck with me. So here we are. little did I know the side note of Cottonwood, but that's another story. But
Yeah.
but
And it's
we're
a beautiful thing.
It is a yes, it is. It is
It'd
a
be great if we
beautiful.
could be. It could be great if we would become neighbors. Yeah, I'd
I
love that.
know. I mean, wow, how powerful. Well, before I end this segment, what is one thing? One pop rock. I'll borrow that from Jackie Sicoli. She calls them pop rocks.
Uh-huh.
What is one thing an entrepreneur can do? Just one thing, one pop rocket that if they would just do that one thing differently, they would find so much more success.
Mm. Be grateful.
Hmm.
Have an attitude of gratitude in everything. Even when things are not going well, be grateful because there's a lesson in it.
Right.
And when things are going well, be even more grateful. But, just don't discount the little things because a whole bunch of little things add up to a whole lot of big thing.
I
A
totally
whole lot of
agree.
big thing. And I find myself, here's that thing. I start my day, and I recommend this to every entrepreneur. Before you even open up that email, before you start, sit for at least 15 minutes. Take out a notebook and make a gratitude list. Start your day, get centered, and just write down what you're grateful for and why.
I think that is
And it sets the
amazingly.
tone. It will set, I tell you, it will set the tone for the entire day. Because I've learned myself that when I skip over that because I wake up late and I'm harried, that the day will start to unravel in not so great a way. And I will say, okay, I need to stop in the middle of the day, get out my gratitude journal, and I need to do a reboot on the day.
Hmm.
And when I do that reboot, I notice that the afternoon goes a whole heck of a lot smoother.
Absolutely. I think that is
There's
a
my pop rock.
precious, yeah, I think that is a
Gratitude.
precious moment. You know, gratitude and just taking in the breath of life.
Yes.
I mean that is so important. Well, we are on it on our last segment is coming up next, and I cannot
Okay.
wait to get a little bit deeper into our conversation. I mean,
Same
gosh,
here.
I feel like we're going to have a show due, so
I'm good with
thank you
you
so
on.
much. Okay, so I'm going to play our little ad here, and then we will see you back in about a minute and a second.
Network together. It's all about connections. Expand your sphere of influence. Build relationships. Be part of something bigger. Be part of Network Together.
Oh my gosh, it's our third segment. Oh, it goes
Yay!
too quickly, doesn't it? Oh my
Yeah, it
gosh.
does.
So I want to start this out, and I want to start this out by let's let's talk India. And
Okay.
you know, and what I mean by that is, I had a discussion with my dad earlier today, and my dad is a mathematician, a wonderful, beautiful mathematician. And my mom was an educator, so I can understand a little bit. And he became a petroleum engineer from Mobil Exxon, and that's where he retired. And then my mom taught for many different companies. Rockwell International is one of them. She was able to work with Stephen Covey and Tom
Oh, wow.
Peters and Wayne Dwyer and a lot of well thought out people. But it's really funny sometimes because when she was working with them in the time frame that she was working with them, they were just another person. They weren't the icons that we see them as now. She's just, well, I just hired them. They just come in, they do some instructing and training. And in India is a very interesting country too, because when my dad and I were
Mhm.
talking, he said, "Did you know in the 17th century, India was the most developed and it was the richest country
Yes.
on earth?"
Yes.
And and when I was listening to him on that, I was thinking to myself, that is really a part of the history that we don't know the depth and the richness and the culture and the beauty that is India, and I can totally understand why you fell in love with that country and its diversity of people, and why it matters so much. And, you know, for me, there's my doctor is Indian, by the way. He both practices both Eastern and Western medicines. And I also have another doctor that's a naturopath, and I'm grateful to have these Eastern philosophies come into my world, Susan. And see, you have two things, in my opinion, from that. You bring back to, I would, for lack of a better word, the Americanized business owner, and you bring them philosophies of thought from India. But then you also bring what you learn here, in automation and processes and development and our own diversity, and you bring it back and forth. So let's talk about maybe like one, two, or even three lessons that you actually bring back and forth for our audience, because those case studies, those conversations that we can have, I think that we'll all learn from.
Okay. Well, it's when you go into a different culture, and I will just preface this by saying that India may not be on many people's bucket lists as a place to go, but I will tell you a trip to India, and especially if you travel with a local, which is really the safest way to go, not on a scheduled tour bus, but really with a local where you can go at your own pace. It is a life changing experience. There are things that I will share that it's very hard to see. One of the biggest life affirming lesson, remember we talking earlier in the show about gratitude, is that when you travel through India, living in the West, one of the things that will hit you is the conditions that some people live in. But one of the most striking things that I found was that you will encounter people that are living in poverty beyond your imagination, but yet there is a peacefulness and there is a serenity, and almost you would call a happiness about them,
Hmm.
where they will speak to you and they smile as if they have everything. And it is that learning how to be content in the empty room. And I asked a number of people there, what is it about India that makes it this way? And it was explained to me that in India, the underpinning of the culture, number one, three things. Number one, source, higher power, however you choose to call him, whether it be Vishnu, Ganesha, Sarasvati, the Sikhs, Bedi, whatever, Allah, Jesus, whatever, because it is a melting pot of religions there. That your number one priority in life is your relationship and your connection to source. Second is family, the value of family, protecting and having family and the love of family. Third is money, the material. Now, of course, in every culture, there's going to be people that are going to flip flop that. But that is the biggest, I think, the biggest shift and difference between the West and in that culture is that in the West, we're a direct flip flop. It's money, family, God in a lot of cases. So that was a big lesson. Also, that we should never take for granted the things that we have that others don't. Number one, clean water and sanitation. When Gandhi was working towards freedom for India, one of his very, very famous quotes was, sanitation is more important than freedom.
Yep.
And I truly believe that. More children, more people, but children especially, and the elderly, die in India due to fecal-borne illnesses and bacteria than from any other cause. Dysentery is the #1 cause of death. I read a book, and there's a movie on my website if people are interested in seeing about windows of opportunity in India. And what really drove me there was I read a book by Rose George called The Big Necessary, and it's all about human waste and how different places handle it around the world. And a large portion of that book was dedicated to India. And going way, way back to my childhood and my fascination with my babysitters and asking them and just loving them because they never got tired of my constant questions of why do you wear the dot on your head and why do you wear bangles and why does your God have 8 arms and has the head of an elephant? All those things that little kids are just curious about. And they never tired of answering those questions, that I became enamored with learning more about it. And as I learned more about the need, this stirring, and I even talk about that on my video, it's this fire in the belly was just saying, you have so much knowledge, so many connections. You love the wastewater industry. This is your life. You are a sewer rat, as they call us. You have so much love for this industry. You need to take that passion and that knowledge and those connections, and you need to use it to be a force for good. I don't know how. I had no idea. I have no idea how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to go to India and I'm going to ask people and I'm going to find a way how. And so that's been my mission for the last 4 to 5 years. And we're starting to make those inroads. Nothing happens quickly. That's another thing. If somebody wants to come into India to do business, know this: nothing happens fast in India.
Yeah.
If it takes a year for something to develop in the United States, it's going to take 4 or 5 years for that same thing to happen in India. So it does take a lot of patience. But I think that's the beauty of it, is that you're allowed to breathe into the concept and really develop relationships on a deep level. So again, it was getting back to knowing who you're dealing business with before rushing to the what and the how.
And I want to kind of enter in here because you make a very fascinating point, because we think of India so much in the United States as the technology, the customer service, the website development, the software applications, but when you actually get into the culture, there is a different feeling
Yes.
within the Indians, and the gratefulness, the humbleness, the appreciation that they have to do work. And one thing I've learned is you know I think sometimes over here in our country we confuse technology, the speed of it, and relationships and the speed of it, because no matter
Yes.
how fast technology goes, it will never go faster than the speed of the relationship. And I think that that's what's
Yes.
happened. We live in such a
Yes.
society where everything's become so instant. We don't take the time and have the patience to actually create relationships, and dare I say it, that have roots. And I was wondering if you see that as well.
Yes. It's that instant gratification of what's in this for me. And I'm finding a little bit more in conscious business. And as I'm, working with customers, I've actually walked away from some very lucrative deals because I sensed that they're coming from a different mindset than I am. And
Mhm.
I choose to do business with people that are coming from a conscious standpoint, a stakeholder standpoint. And as one of my favorite clients always says, Dustin, give him a little plug here. Dustin at Obic Products, he says, whatever we do, it must be good for the kingdom.
Mhm.
And you could look at it, it must be good for all the stakeholders, it must be good for the village, however you want to take that and spin that. when you adopt a stand of, if we're going to do this, it has to benefit everybody involved,
Hmm.
the payoffs are more rewarding. And you also have to look at abundance and prosperity is not always only financial. That's the big cultural shift. I believe that people, yes, they want money, they want to have a better life for their family. But at the end of the day, there's just this sense of, when I leave this world, I want to know that I made a difference and that one person can make a difference, that I left it better than I came into it.
I think it's so important. And and I tell entrepreneurs, here I say, the philosophy that we have in the iEntrepreneur Network is, as business owners, we're not apart from the community. We are really a part of the community.
Yes, yes.
And
We can't see ourselves as them and us. We have to see
yes,
ourselves as we, that we are a community. We're all just playing different roles, and we each have gifts to contribute for the greater
yeah,
good.
yes, I
And I
absolutely
think
do.
also it's that openness to, just because that's the way it's always been done, does that necessarily mean that that's the best way to do it?
Hmm.
When we allow ourselves to be open to new thought, or at least hearing something out, it's like, ooh, wow, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Ooh,
my
what a concept. Somebody came up with a really great idea and I listened to it. You know,
yeah.
it is that openness. We have to be willing to be open to hear another opinion and another thought. That's not to say that we have to take it or run with it. And I think another thing with just communication is, a lot of times with conflict, and there's, because we've all been shut in, and you've probably felt it, I have felt it, that now that we're starting to come out of it, but when we were all in the throes of it, there was just a tension and there was a
Mhm.
rawness because we had never faced anything like this before. And in many cases, people didn't want someone to fix the problem. More often than not, they just wanted for someone to listen.
Yeah.
They just wanted to be heard and to feel like someone really cared enough to spend a few moments to really listen.
Oh my gosh, you gave me goosebumps on that one. And I was learning, one of my children, they have um a little bit of an emotional behavior. And he told me in therapy, and he says, this is good for business, this is good for family, this is good for all people. And he says, sometimes let others know that your bucket is full, and you don't need the problem to be solved. You just need to be able to take what's in your bucket and let it out. And I thought of that, and I thought that was the most
Yes.
amazing experience that I heard, because sometimes children, sometimes spouses, sometimes employees, vendors, clients, sometimes it's not about fixing it. It's just about listening to it. And I
Yes.
I think you really hit the nail on the head. You know, those who listen best serve best.
Yes, it's, allowing that person to reason out what they're processing. And often I find this with myself, is often just talking out an idea to someone, or I'm trying to work through a problem that, in the process of just giving it voice and getting it out of the monkey mind and just, like out there in the airwaves, that I'll get a download from source of that answer that I've been seeking, and all becomes clear.
I
That I
agreed.
believe a lot of times the answers as entrepreneurs, the answers and solutions to problems lie within. We just have to sometimes air it or shut off the monkey mind, go within, breathe, take that quiet moment, and listen for that small, still inner voice. And same goes with that thing that I call that funny feeling that you get between the navel and the breastbone, that when you're starting to feel a little edgy or uncomfortable and you don't know why, and you push yourself to ignore it, every time I've done that, it's come back to bite me in the you know what. And things have not turned out
Absolutely.
well. And I've been like, oh, why didn't I do that? That's someone giving you that little tap on the back, tap on the shoulder that Jethro gives from NCIS, whack on the back of the head, like, listen to me. I'm trying to tell you something here. Don't ignore it. And so I think a lot of times when we're entrepreneurs or solopreneurs and we're by ourselves, that we forget to trust ourselves.
Mhm.
We are afraid to trust ourselves sometimes. And we have to learn to quiet it, and the answers will come.
I totally agree. Well, we are coming to the end of our show. It does go so quickly. I want to make sure I have your information coming across the screen right now.
Yes,
What are other ways that our audience can reach out to you and maybe create a connection with you?
I am very, very active on LinkedIn. So if you look my name up, it's Suzan Marie Chin-Taylor. You can also find me under Creative Raven. I love to connect on LinkedIn. I spend a tremendous amount of time on the platform and sharing information, and would love to connect with people. And if you're interested in water, wastewater, environment, that's something that I can talk about all day long. If you're someone that's in that industry and wants to connect and share resources and, basically, how can we make it better?
Mhm.
Let's talk.
Yeah. And
Let's
and
talk.
and wastewater is a part of your driven,
Yes.
legacy passion. But again, I want to make sure entrepreneurs definitely understand that it's not limited to just that. You can
No.
really
We work
help.
with lots of different companies. It's
Yes.
just
Yes.
any type of technology. I personally love to work with complex technologies. It's something that I and my team really shine in that we love being able to take something that is very difficult for people to understand and
Mhm.
help that developer, that entrepreneur, that innovator tell their story in an edutaining way so that people will say, ooh, that's cool. Tell me more, to get them to
Yes.
want to engage. That's something that I'm a storyteller. I
Yep.
am a serial entrepreneur, but first and foremost, I am a storyteller, and I love to help people tell their story.
And I also want everyone to know that you are going to be a panelist at the Art of Connection Summit. You've also been a contributing author to this book right here, The Art of Connection 365 Days of Networking Quotes. I believe you'll be in the next book, 365 Days of Inspirational Quotes. Go to 365 Days of Inspirational Quotes to be a part of the new book that's coming out. And students, you're going to be on the digital marketing panel. Look, digital marketers, I always say we can create the technology, and Susan can help with that. But the one thing that Susan does as well is she helps create a message, because there's an old adage: if you put garbage into it, you'll get garbage out of it. And I guarantee you, Susan does not create garbage, she cleans it up. so,
Thank you.
so I'm,
I
I hope
love
you
it.
like that.
I love it. Junk,
So
hey, junk in, junk out, That's what my
that is
mother always
right.
used to say.
Well, I am so excited that you were on the show today.
Oh,
I
me
mean,
too.
it was a
Thank you for
delight.
having me.
You
This
know,
was
thank
fantastic.
thank you so
Had a
much
great
as
time.
well. And so just stay for a few moments after, and we'll do a little after show briefing. But I'm going to go ahead and talk to my audience, and then we'll go get off the air. Well, thank you again so much for being on the show, Suzan.
Oh, thank you. And I'm really looking forward to being part of the summit and meeting a lot of people there. So thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, I just loved being able to talk with someone who really cares about, not just business, not just about family, but really, the global place of community. And, the first moment I did, I will say this again and again. I heard Suzan talk. I thought, boy, she's not going to ever get rid of me, because she just has so much to offer, and I want to help her, offer it to the world. Again, we meet here on this network every Thursday on the iNetrepreneur radio show from 2:30 to 3:30 Pacific time. I know you got places to go and things to do, and I don't want to keep you from that, but I'm glad you did this hour with us. Have a great, great time, everyone. And until next week.
You've been watching the iNetrepreneur Show, a production of the iNetrepreneur Radio Network, with host Robert W. Jones. Join Robert each week as he visits with new and exciting guests who inspire, teach, and mentor entrepreneurs worldwide. Follow Robert each Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and 8:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.